everybody. Welcome back to the Varied Life. Steve here, the retired hobby tech guy. And today, we're going to be taking a look at the Bambu H2D because that has been released. Yesterday I did a video where we talked about and showed the specs of it. We all kind of made some guesses in regards to, what the price was going to be. But it begs the question, does anybody really want a printer, laser, vinyl cutter, 3-in-1 thing? I don't think so. I could be wrong. I know for me personally, I wouldn't want to have a machine that does all those things, and then if the main machine breaks, you're out of a printer, a laser, and vinyl cutter. It's just the way it is. There's something to be said for compartmentalization. But regardless of whether you like it or not, there is still some pretty interesting and amazing technology. Again, we're going to see more advancements in the realm of 3D printing, not so much in lasering or vinyl cutting. Pretty much we've kind of reached a plateau with that. And all you need to do is look at, for example, Xtool and their products, their software, their proprietary software, and how they do things, and lining up prints and processing and copying and all that stuff. It seems like Bambu took a page out of the Xtool and kind of said, okay, well, we're going to do this. And seeing the plethora of videos about the new Bambu H2D in regards to the laser cutting and all this other stuff, and the glimpses that we get into the Bambu lasering studio, it definitely gives me that Xtool feel. I mean, it just gives me that Xtool feel, which I think is good because imitation is a form of flattery. And with that being said, Xtool does it really, really well. And I think Bambu is going to follow into those footsteps of Xtool. Whether it's openly accepted and everybody wants that, I don't know. Honestly, I really don't know. Anyway, for those of you who are wondering, my name is Steve, and there's me and my wife. We just got back from we did a short little weekend vacation down in Busan, Korea, or Pusan, Korea, whichever you want to call it, and we had a good time. Took the train down there. I'm currently retired in Korea, so we got time for trips, and we had a good trip. Did the cable car thing down there. Went and saw Buddha's temple, ate some awesome Hanu beef, some grilled fish, seafood. I mean, just incredible. I'm more of a meat and potatoes type of guy, but we had a real good trip. But with that being said, it's kind of interesting on seeing some of the things, not only here in Korea, but, and notice this transition, a lot of technological advancements when it comes to 3D printing. Was that smooth? Did I do that? Finally this has been released, the Bambu H2D, and if you've spent any time on, YouTube, it's littered with the influencers doing their reviews of the H2D and all of that. Rethink personal manufacturing. There we get the H2D, a larger X1C, but not as large as what a lot of other people wanted. Because in all honesty, what ended up happening is that people just wanted a big X1C. They wanted like a 350 cube or 450 cubed build area printer that printed great, kind of like the X1C. We got a couple of print heads on there, which is nice. But then, there could be some problems with that as well. The more fingers you have in the pie, the more problems you can have. The more moving parts, the more liable it is to break at some point. Granted, we have vehicles and cars with millions of pieces. But, there are some considerations we need to look into. So with that, we're going to take a look at, okay, there it works. There it is, all-in-one manufacturing. So you're going to have your 3D printer. You're going to have your laser cutter engraver, and then you're going to have your vinyl, paper, and leather cutter. Saw something else about doing pens and drawing and stuff like that. I don't really get that. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. But a lot of different things in here talking about dual nozzle, double flexibility, printing materials, and if you're printing materials that ends up using two different colors, the cool thing is that you're not going to waste filament. Kind of like the Prusa XL, with the 2 through 5 print heads that it has, it can greatly reduce the amount of wasted filament, which is good. And so there's already been people that have done, a 2-color print, and it ends up, compared to the old system that they have, it cut down the poo by about 3 times. And it increased the print time by about 3 times. So that's kind of a good thing. But then it's not like that's anything groundbreaking, because we've seen that with the Prusa XL. And the price for that, I think for the Prusa XL for a single head is like $2,200, $2,300, somewhere around there, maybe $2,400. And then if you get 2 tool heads, you're going to bump up in price, but you can have up to 5. And that has really kind of come into its own. Of course, when you get up into that price range for 5 tool heads, you're looking into, what is it, like the $3,500, $4,000 range. I mean, it gets pretty expensive. So unless you are doing this as a business, and I think that's what the XL applies to, is you have a large build area, you have multiple print heads. It's looking more towards a business type of printer there. It's not like the hobbyist, unless you're just stinking rich and, don't have a budget like the majority of us. But, you have your printer, next generation filament management. It looks like they got a filament dryer there along with their AMS. Endless possibilities. Okay, yeah. You can do laser cutting and engraving, personal manufacturing, paper and cutting, pen drawing. I'm okay, whatever. We all have computers nowadays and printers, and so I just kind of don't. I don't really see this. You can see some color bleeding and stuff like that, and is that really? You could print something out on your printer and not get these layer lines or these lines here. I just don't. I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of the coloring scheme thing that we got going on there. Hardcore laser machine. It has laser capabilities now, so it ends up that you can have a 10-watt laser or a 40-watt laser. Of course, the higher you go in your wattage, the more expensive your machine is going to be, and I think I kind of nailed it. NYC Girl says, these two things do not go together, and using a laser will destroy your printer, and let's not forget about venting. Total money grab. I'm kind of with you on that. I'm also of the idea that this isn't really, it's not like peanut butter and jelly. It's not like chocolate and peanut butter, the Reese's that go together. They're not peas in a pod. If something goes wrong with the main machine itself, you lose out on your 3D printer, your laser engraver cutter, and your, so you could be at a loss for all 3. Having 3 in one also means that there's a possibility if the machine goes down, you lose all 3 of those capabilities. And then throw in the pen thing, that's a 4th. So, there are some risks, and that needs to be taken into consideration. So with that, I just see people, I just don't, if people are doing laser engraving, they have their own dedicated laser engraver. And they're going to be probably using Lightburn, which is kind of like the industry best software. I don't think Bambu's going to let you use Lightburn. You're going to be locked into their ecosystem, and Lord, you're going to need authorization as always. That whole authorization lockdown thing. This new machine, you're going to have to firmware upgrade this. That's just the fact of the matter. Air assist when you're engraving, yeah, that's nothing new. Contactless 3D mesh leveling, we've seen that. Rotary attachments, we've seen that. And again, all of these things, laser safety windows, you have to have that. Their air purifier, that's got to come into play as well. So for those VOCs, but even with an air purifier and a venting system, with the laser engraver portion, you're still going to have some VOCs. You're still going to have residue and particulates. That is all going to be on the inside of the machine. And even if you look at some of these laser engraving videos and people that have been doing laser engraving for quite some time, I've done a little bit, but you'll notice that they have to do some depending on how much you engrave and cutting, you're going to have to do some daily and at least bi-weekly maintenance. You're going to have to clean lenses and this and that and clean the inside. And I'm just wondering, of all those particulates and the burnt materials, the acrylic, the VOCs and all that stuff, how is that going to react with the 3D printer part of the machine? Is that going to gum up the machine? What about the linear rails? What about the lead screws? What about the things that need... All of those things are going to get dust and smoke, and so there's going to be there should be a lot more maintenance for it. And again, I'm just not a big fan of this. Yeah, you can cut out stuff, colorful projects, okay, maximize. And the engraving area is approximately 12 inches by 9.8 inches, which is okay. I mean, if you look at X-Tool, it ends up that they have smaller areas, but then they also have a conveyor belt system to where you can do more items, you can do continuous printing and large, stuff like that. I just don't... and of course they're going to do their own material RFID codes and so on and so forth. The same thing when you do the accuracy. If you've been into laser engraving, you already know that, yeah, it's pretty accurate down to even a hair. Pretty amazing. Greg ends up talking about and says, I'm with you. The sweet spot for this design is 2 colors. I agree. Less, and you paid way too much more, and you're still using classic AMS purge and poop or poop and purge. And if you get just the printer, it's way expensive. I totally agree. It's, you're buying something that if you're not going to use the laser, if you're not going to use the little pen drawing thing or the vinyl cutter, you're going to be paying for stuff in that machine that you're not going to be using. So really, what do you stand to gain by just buying the machine and not those other modules? You're going to be paying for it. So Greg, you nailed it. Yeah. So it continues on. 2 nozzles that print like one. Okay. Nozzle 1, nozzle 2. That's pretty impressive that you can kind of see there. Others. What is the others? I mean, I would like to see that. What are these others? Multi-head machines. The only one I can think of off the top of my head is a Prusa XL, but I don't know. And really, if you're gonna 2 nozzles that print like one, I mean, why would you want to use 2 nozzles unless you're doing colors? And who are these others? I think, if you're going to do a comparison and mention others, you should kind of mention and show what those others are instead of just putting, anybody can put up a picture. Smooth surfaces, okay, yeah, dual nozzle flexibility. This is kind of an interesting thing, and so that one nozzle comes up, the other one is able to print, but still it ends up, it'll change. The more moving parts, the more possibility of breaking. Of course, then we have cars and spaceships and things like that. So, it can do pretty well. But what happens if you get the blob of death? That's something that could be an interesting little catastrophe, because if you get a blob of death, in the past, what you end up with is you'd probably lose this hot end here. And now there's a possibility that you could lose 2 hot ends. But they have detection, they have the AI and things like that to minimize that risk. But if it comes down to the place of where, bad things happen and you have to replace both of those heads, you're going to be paying a lot more. If you have to replace the entire assembly here, that's going to be a lot more. So you need to take that into consideration. Greg comes up and says, CNC Kitchen has a unit. He said, Lightburn doesn't work. What are the odds? Bambu is going to be their own infrastructure, kind of like X-Tool, except they went the 3D printing route, and now Bambu is trying to do and take a page out of the X-Tool to be their all-in-one system, which, is cool if that's for you. But for me, I just don't see it. We continue on, talks about printing, no manual tuning or calibration. That seems to be industry standard these days anyway with most 3D printers. AMS system, which is pretty nice, a bunch of sensors, and again, more advancements. I think the good thing with this is that the more advancements that other companies come up with, it's going to drive the price down for other companies and the models and what they do, and this technology will become more commonplace. So while this might be groundbreaking to have these 36 sensors, next year you're going to have other machines that are going to jump on this train as well, and it's going to be standard. It's not going to be a thing that is, and it'll come down in price too. So that's the great thing about competition is in the market economy. New York City Girl says, we have made great leaps in 3D printing, and now I feel like more and more we're moving into gimmick territory. Yeah, to some degree, I think so. I think you're absolutely right in that. And the fact that I just didn't see the outcry from the masses of wanting a printer, laser engraver, laser cutting, vinyl cutting, leather paper cutting, pen operating all in one machine. I don't know. Maybe I live in Korea, so I'm kind of sheltered. I don't know. Maybe that's the reason why. But I just don't. To me, it just doesn't appeal to me. So I just don't understand why they went this route. But if you can get people, I think what they're doing is they're taking a page out of Xtool, and then if they can lock in their own ecosystem, and then you get people that don't care about the price, and they're going to get this machine, and they just want to do laser engraving, maybe, well, you have to do 3D printing. I don't think you can have just the laser engraver. Maybe I'm wrong. But I don't know. It just... I can kind of see where they're going with it, but I just, are people really going to look at this machine and say, well, I'm just into laser engraving, so I'm going to get the H2D and just do lasering? I just don't think the build area is there. The print area is there. I think that with the material and the burnt particulates and smoke and all of that stuff, debris can get into the rest of this machine, and that's going to be more maintenance. And does anybody really want to have to deal with more maintenance than what they should with like a regular laser machine? I don't think so. But maybe there are a bunch of people out there that will think that's okay. The market will show eventually one way or another. Precision motors, all of this stuff. 15 sensors on the filament path. Of course, that's going to be a thing going through these days. Bigger. King size work zone, 350 by 320 by 325. I don't think that's king size work zone. I mean, my K2 Plus is 350 cubed. And then you have things like the Prusa XL, which has a large build area, print area. The volume there is pretty big. The Ender 5 Max, I think that's 400 cubed. So I wouldn't call it king. I would say that's probably a queen size in that, kind of analogy. It seems that would be my thing. And it has different sizes. I don't know. Single nozzle, dual nozzle. So you kind of lose things because they are side by side, and that takes up some space. And then, you look at the X1C, which is 256 cubes. So, yeah, I mean, it's bigger, between that and that, which is good. But I think people really wanted a 350 to 400 cubed X1C, basically, is what they wanted. I think this is kind of a good idea with the dual hot end instead of having kind of like the Prusa XL with like individual hot ends and, the massive cable thing that they got going on. I think this is a really smart idea, and I think more people are going to get into this and use this as inspiration to do multi-heads. And I could definitely see future machines similar to this using a dual head and then having another one that kind of moves up out of the way, and then I definitely see this technology advancing and other people taking the inspiration from it. Consistently print at 600 millimeters per second. Reliable high speed at 600 millimeters per second. Designed for consistent performance. And this is kind of... not everybody is going to be printing at 600 millimeters per second. When you print a model, your daily driver speed is going to be 200, 250, depending on how the model is. If you have corners, you're going to have to slow down. Depending on the width and the thickness and the infill and all of that, you're not going to be printing at 600. Excuse me. So, that's some other stuff there. Let's see. Vancan says Bambu is trying to one-up Prusa and Creality and all other comers in one move. Yeah, the laser engravers, the vinyl cutters, the pen people, doing pens. I don't really see the thing with that, since you have a printer on your computer that can do realistic photo reproduction. But no, we're gonna do with a pen. Coloring, I don't know. Then again, there was a time when I didn't think laser engraving would be cool until I actually got into it. But with this machine, I'm not really sure. Reinforced materials, all of that stuff, laser protection, which is a thing, emergency stop. Yeah, you definitely need to have that. Flame retardant chamber, which is good. Flame sensors, which is good. You'll see that on a lot of laser engraving machines where they have flame detection and things like that. And also on here, they have the auto fire extinguishing system with the CO2. This isn't anything new. Other machines, laser engravers, have had this for a while now. So, but the good thing is that I'm seeing this, and that's a good thing. Because, now when you first thought about the H2D and the rumors and the leaked specs, and people are like, well, people are just going to leave. In laser engraving, you can have flare-ups on your material. Things can catch on fire. So you need a redundant system, not only to be fire retardant, but to put that fire out. And even then, are you going to trust your home or your apartment, your domicile, to a thing like this? I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to leave home and engrave and let that go, and me not being home. That's just not. That doesn't give me a warm fuzzy. Maybe it'll get to that point. With the technology, but for me, it just wouldn't be a thing. Temperatures, talks about that. Adaptive flow has their thing. Bambu Handy, Bambu Cloud. You have to get that authorization in the H2D and whatever. Says you could be fully off grid by using USB drive and then the LAN and developer third-party applications and for firmware update, but I'm just not digging the authorization thing, especially when Bambu said that they were doing it for our safety and security, and they said that they were getting 30 million hits or 3 million hits a day on their servers, and they said, well, we're doing this authorization for your safety. And it's like, my safety, I don't need, honestly, I haven't experienced, or nobody has experienced, somebody taking over their machine and printing benchies in the middle of the night and causing chaos in the world of Bambu machines, or other machines for that matter. So the whole idea of Bambu saying that they were doing it for safety, security, is definitely a lie. They're doing it to lock down their system and control everything. And all the information, how many times has Bambu lied? They lied about the logs, and what was it, 3D Musketeers grant, talking about how they got into those files, and the things that Bambu said that wasn't being transmitted ended up being transmitted, and more. So, that just really, really bugs me. So, the terms of service, when you read that, if you really get into their terms of service, very problematic. It even says that, hey, if you put them in a bad light, you're on the chopping block. So it's like, whoa. Let's get back to this. That could be a whole nother video. The AMS2 Pro, there's some advancements there, and the AMS HT, which is a filament dryer. That looks pretty good. There's some advancements there. Electromagnetic air vent. It just seems like a vent that operates on its own. Let's see. And we get a comment from Vancan. In my humble opinion, this is several bridges too far. Jack of all trades and master of none. Well, that's true. I think it can be a good laser engraver, but if you're really into laser engraving, you're going to have your own laser engraver that is dedicated, that has been tested and proved to be successful and use things like light burn. And now Bambu has to go through and reinvent the wheel, or copy and paste and put their own skin on their version of a light burn-esque type of software. They got to redo all that. And so there's going to be some growing pains. And, if they lock people into their system, especially new people that are thinking, oh, well, I can get a 3D printer and all this stuff all at once, they could get some market share for that. I don't think they'll get as much as they think they will. But, yeah. Peter, North Pole, 2 nozzles, 1 soluble support, and 1 print. That is an option. The one thing that we do see with that is that soluble supports, that material is really expensive. And while when that came out, that was like, ooh, that is awesome. Just dunk your prints in the water and they disappear and you have your print. That's kind of expensive, and so is cost prohibitive to a lot of people, and we haven't seen a lot of that since. So at one time, I think that was, like you said, a good use case. I think it's more comes into play with doing multiple colors or just doing 2 different types of materials. Because like we said, with the with the 2 print heads, what you end up having is you can reduce the color change, you can reduce the filament waste by 3 times, and you can increase your print speed, at least with doing 2 colors. I think there are some test prints that I saw where usually it was 5 hours and now it's down to 2 hours. So, some advancements are there, and that's a good use case. Anytime that you can print faster with less waste, that helps. But with just 2 heads, I don't know. I don't know if that's enough. Maybe if somebody's, I just don't know. Auto rotate drying, RFID, kind of going after the Creality and other companies that have, their RFID systems to identify filament feeding, average 10 minutes saved per 100 filament changes. So that's kind of good. Kind of looks similar to the CFS on the Creality K2 Plus, that you have access to the tubes, so we can see imitation is a form of flattery, so they're taking that. Ceramic inlet, that is kind of good. That's a good idea there, I think. So one less you're going to pay for that, but it's going to last longer, so I think that's kind of a good thing. 1 machine with a value of 4, so you have your print head here. You have, what is it? The laser. That's the laser. That's the print head. I think that's the pen marker, and that's the cutting one. So you have all of these different things here. So rethink. And when we talk about price, remember I said it was like $34.99 or $34.95. If we look at this and we check out the prices of this, we have $1,900 for just the machine itself. That's steep. That's steep for a machine that's not even 350 cube. You get 2 machine heads, which is pretty good. My K2 Plus, but you're not getting an AMS system. My K2 Plus, I was able to, for $1,500, I was able to get a 350 cube build area with the CFS and be able to have 4 colors or 4 different types of materials. Now you're going to be paying, almost $2,000 for just the machine itself. If we take a look with the AMS system that they have on there, now we're getting up into $2,200. And you get you get a bit bigger build area. But I don't know. $2,200, and you compare that against other big machines, Ender 5 Max, Creality K2 Plus. Even look at things like the Keydi and their large scale, bigger printers, multi-material systems, because you're going to spend, maybe 250, 275, maybe 325 for a multi-material system, somewhere around that range. But when you start getting, here's the kicker with the lasers. Lasers are cool, okay? But when we look at this, now we're looking at $2,800, and that's with a 10-watt laser. That's a 10-watt laser. That's kind of expensive. I'm just saying the difference between the H2D by itself versus this is like, what, $300-400, and then the difference between the H2D by itself with this, I mean, you're talking some decently sized money. Over $1,000, $2,800, and if you throw on, here's the kicker. Let's do the 40-watt laser. Now you're talking $3,500. I just don't get it. I just don't think that's enough to do that. I really just don't think that's enough to do that. Greg brings up a good point. It says the AMS only serves one printhead. It still does the poop and purge cycles. The other printhead has to be dedicated to an external spool, which is absolutely right. So really, meh. It is what it is. I just don't see that as a big selling point. But then maybe I'm just not to the point of where being able to print with two different colors and minimize the amount of poop. And again, like Greg said, one is still going to purge and poop. If you use the one head with the multi-AMS system and you have to change colors or materials, you're still going to go through some purging and pooping and all of that stuff. And then the one will be dedicated to whatever the spool is on the side. So, I don't see spending $3,500 for this. I just don't get it. Either the 40 watt or even the 10 watt. And let's see, I'll show you why. Raleigh Lasermatic has their Lasermatic. That's their XL, which is a large one. And you're looking at a 610 by 390 millimeter work area, 24 by 15.3. For, what we're looking at with a 30 watt laser is 1850. And if we go with a 20 watt, it brings it down to 1550. And if you go with a 10 watt, but you have a dedicated machine, you have dedicated cameras, all of this stuff with a rotary chuck. With no rotary chuck, we're looking at, less than $1,200. Same thing, a 20 watt, you're looking at $1,350, 30 watt, $1,647. But again, it's a dedicated machine. So, and Raleigh Lasermatic has some incredible quality in their products and definitely a larger work area. I just don't see, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just old. I just don't see the draw for that. If you're into laser engraving, you're going to be doing stuff with light burn. That is kind of like the industry standard. I think there's one or two others. But like Greg ends up saying, he popped up here and said, two colors is the sweet spot. So if you're into doing printing and if you're doing stuff that requires two colors or two materials, whatever it is, then that could be an answer for a question that's being asked. If the problem is that you need to print two colors or two different types of materials and you want to minimize the time on printing, Bambu has answered that with the H2D because it does it 3 times better, 3 times faster. So, minimize the waste, improve your print speed, and that's kind of a good thing. So it does do well, at least according to specs. Excuse me. But I just don't know if that's going to be enough. And again, it all goes back to the thing of what I was saying is I just don't, throwing a 40 watt laser and you're looking at $3,500, I just don't get it. I just don't think that's a thing. For me personally. For other people, it might be a thing. So, but that's a lot of money. And when you're looking at just the machine by itself, and you're looking at $1,900, and without an AMS, you get two print heads. But where's the AMS? I mean, I $2,200 for. I mean, really, is that worth it? I think that's what it comes down to. I think it comes down to whether you see there's value in it. And then you could go with the, let's see, the Prusa XL. And Prusa XL, boom, boom, because Greg brought that up. But Prusa XL with two head works the same. That's absolutely true. So there we end up with the Prusa XL. And what is the print area? I want to say it's 350. Where is it? There it is. Build area 360 cubed, up to 5 tool heads. But if we're looking at two of those, add on another, so $2,500. So just that, $1,900 versus the $2,500. And so that's a deal there. I think the thing that's holding back Prusa is that they manufacture all of their stuff in Europe, and they don't kind of branch out. So that's part of the problem with their pricing. But then again, with that, they're really strict on their quality control, and so I appreciate that. And then their dedication to continued support and technical support for years to come is just amazing. So, if we look at their 3D printers, you can go back to their, what is it, XL, Speed, Original, Prusa Core, they still have Mark 3S to Mark 4. They still have kits to go from your Mark 3S to a Mark 4S. Kits and stuff like that. So, if you get the Prusa XL, you know that you're going to be able to use that for years and years to come, and there'll probably be an upgrade kit to go from the Prusa XL to whatever they do next. So they'll use that same bone feature that they have. But yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. New York Girl says, I like gears separate because if one thing goes down, I can keep working on other things. I would rather the Prusa. I agree. I'm kind of the same boat. Let's compartmentalize things, and, if something breaks, I can still do the other stuff. And I just don't see, excuse me, I just don't see a lot of people saying, I'm into 3D printing, I'm into laser engraving, I'm into leather cutting, I'm into pen drawing stuff, and get an all-in-one type of solution type thing. I just don't get that. It just doesn't appeal to me, and I'm kind of with you. It's people just wanted a big X1C. Maybe if you had a couple tool heads on there, have it 350 or 400 cubed area, boom. A lot of people, I think more people would be happy with that than doing this. The good thing is it's a bigger build area than 256 cubes, so more advancements. But I think I would sit this one out. And this was what I was going to wait for until Bambu did their authorization lockdown thing. It just didn't, that didn't really appeal to me. So yeah, is it really, and I think we need to change that now, because now it's not just a 3-in-1, it's a 4-in-1. Because now, pen and vinyl cutter hoozy thing there that we got going on. I just don't see that as appealing. I mean, it's not like peanut butter and jelly to me. It just didn't seem like that's something would appeal to me, and I don't think a lot of other people. I don't know. Maybe this will change. Maybe this will be the thing that Bambu gets known for, is their all-in-one systems, and more people are going to jump onto this. That's a possibility. But then when you look at other consumer electronics in the past, remember how there's the microwave oven, convection oven, all in one system that those things came about, and it ends up with the carousel and all that. It just ends up that those didn't fare well, and those performed great. It did the microwave, it did the convection oven, it did the regular oven type of thing, but it just didn't take off because it just didn't fit. And Greg, who wants a vinyl cutter? A small vinyl cutter, and it has to be. That's true. It is a small vinyl cutter. When you're looking at 12 inches by 9.8 inches, I think that's just enough to tease people to get into, maybe. But when, like with laser engraving, you really want a big build area, big engraving area. Your girl says the greatest printer nobody asked for. I think you're right. I think if you just got it by itself, for $1,900, basically $2,000 is what you're looking at. I don't know if that's enough. And I don't know. This kind of gives me the vibes of kind of like when they did the A1 Mini and then the A1, and how they released them so close to each other, and people got kind of mad because the A1 was bigger. And people, well, why would you do that? I think they're kind of doing something similar here. It's going to be like, I think it'll work out, but I don't think it's what was needed. It's not the hero that we wanted, It's not the hero that we needed either. So, Greg says, by the way, I own 4 3D printers and 2 are Bambu. Cool. I'm just working on the one, which is the Creality K2 Plus, and I'm really happy with that. I did have some experience with 3D printers when I worked for the state of Colorado, and I can't remember the name of them for the life of me. But it wasn't. This was a long time ago, and the 3D printers. I mean, they weren't like what we have today. But it was really interesting on that stuff. But it's a thing. I think the good thing to take away from this is that there are more advancements in the technology of 3D printing, multi-heads and stuff like that, AMS, more sensors, more of all this stuff, get better quality in certain aspects. Certain aspects. And I think other companies are going to look at this and say, hey, well, now they're going to take that technology and run with it. And then there's going to be this competition going on. There's going to be lower prices. So, I wouldn't, just based on that alone, I wouldn't go for this. I would wait, honestly. And, I was going to buy Bambu. I was going to get an A1 and just to tide me over, give me my, my 3D printing fix until the H2D came out. But then they did the authorization lockdown, and I was like, I'm not feeling that. I'm just not, it doesn't give me a warm fuzzy, so that's why I took a gamble on the K2 Plus, and I've been happy so far. So, that's what we got going. I mean, I don't think anybody really asked for this, but I think it's a calculated move to kind of steal people away from X-Tool. I think now maybe Bambu is going to compete against X-Tool, and because I think they almost reached the pinnacle of 3D printing. I think as far as right now with the technology we have, there's only so far that you can go. And then you kind of, you all these advancements, and then we get to the peak, we get to the zenith, and then it's like any advancements are not going to be significantly better. I think we kind of peaked out. We petered out. We're kind of done with what we can do, and unless there's some huge advancements made, I think we're pretty much seeing what we can do with 3D printing. And so now it's just going to be more about fine tuning, filament profiles, all of this stuff, kind of like what with resin printing went through. But and the good thing is there's a lot of different printers to choose from, so we're not locked into having to choose the Bambu H2D. Greg says the A1 is a solid printer, but if you're going to print engineering filaments like PEEK, you're only going to print that. And the build area isn't that large for that material. That's true. Yeah, absolutely. And there's something to be said with that. There's, then you can get into the Delta style printers, the FL Sun, which I considered getting, and then that didn't work out well. And then they came out with their FL Sun S1 Pro version. So they fixed the stuff from the S1 and the other one, and they just went right to a Pro version instead of, that just didn't give me a warm fuzzy with that. But, those different materials, now you're getting into a whole different world. If you're really involved in doing prototyping and engineering and things like that, you're probably going to be on the level of getting a better machine, a more industrial type use machine. But it's good that we're seeing more of this come into play because it's, again, the competition and people that couldn't afford a $4,000 or a $6,000 machine to prototype parts with those materials. Now we're getting machines that are coming down in price, better capabilities, and can do those things. So again, the competition is a good thing. But, I think that the A1 and the A1 Mini and similar machines, that's more for hobby stuff. It's more for, printing out little things and side gigs and like that. If you're talking about engineering prototyping, I think that's a whole different category. But regardless, you could still make models, print them out on an A1 or a small 3D printer, and then send them off to a company to machine that model once you've kind of gone over and done your prototypes and print it out, put it in your hands, say, yeah, this is a good thing. We need to change this or do this. And then once you're satisfied, you can send that file off to a manufacturer to print those for you. So you can either do them yourself or you could, there's just so many options out there, which is really cool. But I don't know. I just don't get the laser engraving, pen, vinyl cutting, and especially with the small area that you have to work with, which is 12 by, the 12 by 9.8 inches. Like if we look at the Raleigh Lasermatic, it's 24 inches by 15.3. And that's a dedicated laser machine that is an awesome, incredible thing. New York Girl says, I care more about being able to repair my printers. I don't have a ton of money, but love creating and learning the craft. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I didn't think I would like laser engraving until I did a review on one and they sent me one and I was like, cool, this is awesome. Even though it was only a 100 millimeter by 100 millimeter engraving and cutting area, I've still made some pretty wild stuff, and I've made money with that machine. I did slate coasters, and was able to secure a deal, and on one deal, I was able to make over $350 off of 80 slate coasters, and the coaster ended up costing me less than $1, and then if you figure in the electricity and stuff like that, the materials, just the materials, not the time on the machine, I came out with $350, and I gave the guy a big discount because it was a big order, my very first client, but I still made $350, which on a $175 machine, I already paid for the machine in just one fell swoop, by doing slate coasters. So it's pretty amazing on what you can do. So you don't need a huge machine to make money. And even with the Raleigh Lasermatic, their MK2 is even cheaper. And I'm just going to kind of do a little squirrel thing here because I'm kind of going off on a tangent. You're looking at a 10, 20, or 30 watt configuration. A 10 watt is $1,000. Their 20 watt is $1,300, and their 30 watt is $1,600. But what you get on that, and that's with the rotary truck. With no rotary, we're looking at $900. 20 watt, basically $1,000. 30 watt, $1,400. So yeah, it's pretty wild. And what is the build area on that? It's a little bit smaller. What is it? What is it? What is it? I had it written down somewhere because it's, but I mean, that's a pretty decent sized build area. 500 millimeters per second, light burn camera, blah, blah, blah. Rotary chuck. Ask your question. I don't know. Jig table. I don't know. But, again, a dedicated system is going to be something that is going to appeal to more people than doing an all 4-in-1 type of thing. So, New York Girl says that her laser is her next purchase. She's saving up now. Greg says you should try swapping out the heater in an A1. The blob of death is real, and once filament melts into the latch mechanism, it's a goner. Wonder if there's going to be the blob of death on the H2D. That could be a little expensive, considering all the new technology, the 2 heads, the 2 heater blocks, and all of that stuff. That could be a little bit expensive, and that's a risk that you have to take. Better North Pole says Prusa XL has no heated chamber. It's an open machine. I'd never get that printer specifically for that price. Yeah, and originally I would too. I think, again, the price, because it's built over in Europe and they can't get materials as cheap as you can in China, they could farm it out and those prices would come down dramatically. But I just don't think that would work out well. You can buy heated chamber, but that's an additional expense. But again, if you're at the point where you need multiple print heads, like 4 or 5 print heads, that means you're going to be doing something more on the business side of the house. But you're guaranteed that with Prusa, you're going to get technical support for a decade at least. I could confidently say that Prusa will offer tech support. Even on their MK3s, they still have support for those machines and their MK4s and things like that. So those things are workhorses, and they just go forever, and they still support them. Let's see. Greg ends up saying the H2D uses the same latch mechanism as the A1. It's a blob of death. Gonna be paying that coin if that blob of death screws up both of your heads there. Peter ends up saying, I think Bambu really effed it up here. Bigger X1C with chamber heater, new AMS and dryer, big volume. Yeah, I think that's what everybody wanted, was a big X1C. And I don't know, they still have the opportunity to do that. And maybe they'll take a page out of the Prusa book and say, hey, we're using this platform as our base, and so now they could just throw in a single head on there, throw in a chamber heater, and boom, you can get that. So there's a possibility of something like that happening in the future. I don't know, maybe. No laser cutter, etc. That's lame. In and of themselves, I don't think it's lame, but I think adding these things all together in an all-in-one package, it's just not like peanut butter and jelly. It's not like chocolate and peanut butter. It's not like these things go together well. Yes, they're all hobby activities, and yes, but I don't know. There's a long way to go to change the hobby and the maker's perspective, and seeing that this would answer all my problems. Because I don't think it answers all my problems. And again, my big thing is with doing laser engraving, you're cutting acrylic, you're cutting metals or engraving metals, wood, whatever it is that you're doing. All of these things are going to result in smoke and debris and particulates that are going to get into the nooks and the crannies and the rails and the lead screws and the motors and so on of the 3D printer. And that has to be pretty clean. So, with all these things together, you're going to have a more involved maintenance and do maintenance more often. And is that something that people want to do? I don't know. I don't know. It just doesn't appeal to me. And for that price range, it doesn't appeal to me either. So I'm kind of glad I didn't, wait. I'm glad I got my Creality K2 Plus. At least I say that now. I'm still crossing my fingers. But honestly, like I said in the past with the Creality, they had some problems with their X1 and their X1C or whatever it was, the one that they did before, the K1, and false advertising, the all metal, extruder and gears and all that. And then the reviewers found out that they sent the machines to that it wasn't all metal and it was mostly plastic. And so, how could you promise 10,000 hours of clog free use because of the metal, and there is no metal? Well, where did that number come from? So I hope that Creality has learned a lesson in that, and they just kind of go on the straight and narrow. Don't get involved in trying to use hype and all this stuff. I hope that Creality would take a page out of Prusa, and they will take the K2 Plus and use that as a base machine, as a base unit, and then they can add on something like two printer heads or 3 or 4, multiple print heads on this. I think they could do that, especially with that large build area. So I think if they kept the size, it's a heated chamber, it has all this stuff, really any more advancements, I think it could do well. I think they could do a multi-head system and retrofit that into the bones of the K2 Plus. And I think that would encourage more people. I think that would really go a long way. And if Creality did that, I think they could go way farther. But that's just my opinion. I don't know. Again, it's imitation is flattery, and I think if they took a page out of Prusa's playbook, they could do really well in that. And because then you're lessening, you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time with a new machine next year or the year after that. You stick with a bare bones 350 cube, boom, and then you just add these upgrade kits that you can do. I think that's a win because you can sell the machine, a brand new machine, or you can sell an upgrade kit and you're going to get more sales. I think that's what Creality needs to do. So, and other companies as well. I think they'll come to this realization. We'll see how that happens. Anyway, that's what we got going on. I thought that was kind of interesting. Anywhere from $1,900 from the machine itself to $2,200 to $2,800 to, with the full 40 watt laser, $3,500. I don't know. Even if I had the money, the discretionary money just to throw away, I don't think I would get this. It just doesn't appeal to me. New York Girl says, my K1 is awesome. After I upgraded half the parts, and I might get the CMS. I think that's what it is called. The CFF system or whatever it is, the multi-material system. They are doing an upgrade kit for those older systems, and I think those are out now. And I think Creality is going to see that this is going to go well. And I think quality over quantity is going to be a good thing. But they could go really, really far. Creality could. So very, very interesting. Very, very interesting indeed. So that's what we got. I mean, the Bambu H2D, is it, does anybody really want all of this? I think the people that have watched this so far have kind of concluded and come to the same conclusion that no one really asked for this. It's Tomic Figura says, at the end of the day, even if you're only buying the 3D printer version, you're still paying more for the entire development process that involved the laser, etc. Yeah, you're paying for stuff that you're not going to use, and you don't have, the other thing that you don't have with this is you're going to be locked into their ecosystem and their software versus getting a laser engraver that you can use Lightburn or other software that you pick and choose. Pick the one that you like best or that gives you the best bells and whistles, and you can run with that. Bambu's not going to let you do that. They're going to be like Xtool, and you're going to have to be forced to use their stuff, and you're not going to be able to branch out. And, there's something to be said for that. but they're going to do, I think they're going to they're kind of going down the same road as Xtool, is we're going to do our own thing and screw everybody else, and we're just going to lock everybody in. And again, the information and what is gleaned from everything that you do goes to their cloud and through the logs. We've all seen that with Bambu, even though they said it wasn't. I just really don't like that. If you're going to do it, and you're upfront and say, yeah, we're getting logs that says what you print, how long it printed, where, the whole 9 yards, the plans, everything is being uploaded to our cloud. If you have a problem with that, then here's a solution where, you can opt out of that. I would be happy with that. Even if they just told us that, hey, to continue making our products better, we're gonna upload all this stuff to our cloud and make better products in the future, because we know what you print and how it's printed and so on and so forth. I could accept that. But I can't accept when you lie and you say, oh no, we're not going to take any of this information. And then someone, Grant from 3D Musketeers, they bust into the logs and they find out all of the stuff that they said they weren't going to send, they did send. That's just wrong. And based on that alone, I just don't agree with that. It just a bad taste in my mouth. Got to wash that out. So anyway, very interesting stuff that we got going on with Bambu. I do look forward, and I like the technology and the advancements that they've made with this H2D system, and that's going to be imitated by other companies, which is going to bring the price down on other printers that do similar things like this. I don't think we'll see other companies doing lasers with their 3D printers or vinyl cutters or pen drawing things. I just don't see that as a thing. Hell, if you're going to do a 4-in-1, why don't you just have it be a printer as well, so you can load paper in there? Why even dick around with a pen? I just don't get it. Hell, make it a little microwave as well, so I can heat my coffee in there and my lattes. That is, while we're at it, let's just throw everything in there. The kitchen sink. Being facetious now, but yeah, I just don't see the price point. But anyway, thanks for coming around and checking out this video. I really appreciate that, and if you could like and subscribe to the channel, I really would appreciate that. The Buried Life on YouTube. If you're watching this on Facebook, because it's getting streamed there as well, go to my YouTube page, like and subscribe. That little guy there, yeah, that guy, that's supposed to be me. He's a little bit more muscular than me, but it is what it is. But that's pretty much going to be it. If you have any questions, concerns, tips, tricks, playlists, information to make me a better person or a better hobbyist maker type guy, send me an email or put it in the comments. If you're really impressed with the information, yeah, right. Excuse me, you can buy me a coffee. There's a link for that. And the people over here, they have bought me coffee, and I have much respect for them. So with that, thank you all for watching. I appreciate that. And again, I'm Steve. I'm the retired hobby tech guy, American expat in Korea. And we will see you on the next video. But one last comment from New York Girl. I do like the idea of a coffee maker on my printer. Now we're talking. That has merit, because how many times do you go, you're doing your thing, and it ends up, it's like, okay, now we're going to go ahead and have a coffee warmer on there. I'm totally for that. I'll do a 2-in-1. 3D printer, coffee maker, or espresso maker. That seems to make more sense than lasers and vinyl cutting. That's a good one. We'll see y'all later. All right, peace.